Let's start the program off talking about a big problem, a big subject, and it's just getting bigger as more and more baby boomers get older and retire. And that's having discussions with your children, or your children having discussions with their parents about their finances, their parents' finances. It's going to happen sooner or later. It has to happen. And you don't want it to happen in the midst of a crisis. You want to have these discussions when there's no crisis, when you're still healthy, you're still of sound mind. But many children are very uncomfortable talking to their parents about their finances. Or maybe their parents are very uncomfortable talking to their children about their finances. And it's something that has to happen because the vast majority of people are going to need help from their children at some point. You're not going to be able to pay your bills. You're going to need to talk about estate planning and so forth. Now, I had recently had some clients, and multimillionaire clients, just everyday working people that live their life right and save money and invested properly and had 401ks and all that kind of stuff. And we were talking, as we usually do in our initial appointment with clients, we talk about everything. I look at it, to use a medical analogy, I look at it as a physical. It's a financial physical. So we talk about every aspect of a person's financial health. And one of the things we always talk about is end-of-life issues. And the older the client is, the more prevalent the more time we're going to spend there. I mean, if you're 62 years old, you come to see me, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about protecting you from a nursing home. That's something for 20 years from now. But if you come in and you're 80, well, that's a different story. That's something we have to talk about now. And one of the things I always ask, and this multimillionaire client, once I laid out all their assets, and I said, who's your beneficiary? As well as my two children. And I asked them, I said, does your children know how much money you have? And they say, no, we never discuss our money with our kids. I said, I think you need to have that conversation. And I'm a big believer in not keeping secrets from children. I say the will is a terrible place to keep secrets in my book. And there's a time and a place to have that conversation. Now, there was a book written where I get a lot of the stuff from. It's called Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk. How to Have Essential Conversations with Your Parents About Their Finances. Now, if you're one of those people who are a child of an aging adult that you think really needs to talk to you about stuff, you may want to read this book. Because they talk about 10 different ways to approach your parents about this subject. And everybody's different. Every parent is different. Some parents are very, very, very secretive. Some parents are very, very controlling. They never want to give up any control of their money, no matter what their mental condition is or their physical condition is. Many of them feel that they're reversing roles with their children. I was the mother, and now they're mothering me. There's a lot of psychological aspects to this. Now, the first question is when to have this conversation. And as I said before, you don't want to have it, when you're at a crisis. You want to have this, as things are progressing. Because let's face it, many people have no idea how to do the proper asset protection, estate planning, and this is the area where people make the biggest mistakes in their financial life. The biggest mistakes, the most costly mistakes. Because A, they did it on their own without, talking it through with their children, or they didn't more likely not get proper professional financial advice as they were entering the end of their life. Gifting things properly, putting a child on somebody's account thinking that that'll just help you to pay your bills, but meanwhile you disinherited your other kids. It's just so many things that are wrong. Gifting the house at the wrong time to the wrong child. I can go on and on and on. There's so many different aspects of end-of-life financial issues that people don't get professional financial advice about. But one of the things you have to do is include your children. Now, in my practice, given the 35-year age of my practice, and many of my clients have been with me decades, and they're on the end of their life at this point, we do a lot of this. This is something I encourage, is meetings with the children. I say, look, we could have it in my office. Right? Especially if you think there needs to be a referee because your children and your family are a little dysfunctional. That's another issue altogether with end-of-life financial issues. How stable is your family? Are they going to get into a big brawl fight because they're discussing finances with you? But if you're going to have a family meeting, the time to have it is not like Christmas when the whole family's together. We're all together. Let's talk to mom now. You'll say, no, it's not okay. First of all, there's usually alcohol involved. If it's a holiday, there's little kids running around. There's people there who shouldn't hear the conversation. The best thing to do if you're all together for the holidays, the next day have that meeting. I mean, how would you feel if one of your kids said, please pass the turkey, then tell me who's going to get what after you're done? That's not the place to do it. You have much more success with this conversation if you do it when everybody's relaxed, emotions aren't running high, you don't have kids running all over the place. And it's very important that this conversation not be rushed. And the person who leads the conversation should be the most mature, the most responsible, the most level-headed, the most unemotional sibling in the room. And this shouldn't be a free-for-all here. I mean, we're trying to figure out what's best for mom or what's best for dad. Now, more often than not, these conversations are not had when mom and dad are both alive. And maybe they should be. But these conversations are done when there's only one left. And you say, okay, well, I know if dad dies, mom gets everything, so we don't have to worry about that. But, if mom's alive and dad's passed already, well, then now the estate kicks in. And we got to make sure that she's doing the right thing. Now, it may take, first of all, some parents are so open with their kids, it is not a problem whatsoever to sit down and say, hey, mom, we're a little concerned. We want to make sure that no mistakes are made here at the end of your life. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your will. Let's talk about maybe gifting some money just to get it out of your name so we could start 5-year look-back period. Let's go see an advisor together. Go to my advisor. I think he's very good. So why don't you come with me and sit down with him so we can start talking about this stuff. And with other parents, it may take several attempts to get them to open up to you. But most importantly, you don't want to push them. You don't want to push them to reveal to you more than they're comfortable revealing. It's a process in some cases. It's not a one-time sit down where everything comes out. They're going to spill their guts about everything. And now we're done. You also want to take notes during these meetings because you're going to forget things. Very, very important. And your parents should take notes too. Another thing you could do, first of all, don't make the conversation about money. Especially if you think your parents, think that money is a taboo topic. And many people feel that way, that we don't talk about politics, religion, or money in the family. Well, politics is probably something that in many families shouldn't be talked about these days. That's a whole other subject, but you can't believe how divided some families are politically now. To the point of not talking to each other because of politics. That's a shame that we've become so divided politically. Their brother's not talking to sister. I mean, it's out there. But talking about the family finances is something that should be done. But you could start by talking like big topic issues. Or you could tell a story. You could say, you know what, I had a friend, his father just died. He didn't have a will. And boy, what they had to go through to settle that estate was costly and headaches and everything else. Have you done your estate planning? You're not talking to mom, how much money do you have and how much am I going to get? And who's getting what? That's not the way you start that conversation. Another way to approach the conversation where it's not about money is to ask your parents about their wishes. Mom and Dad, you took so much good care of me when I was young. I want to be able to provide you with the same sort of care that you would ever need And this could open the door to conversations on whether they have a will, financial power of attorney, anything like that. But I find that by using a story and saying that, oh my God, a friend of mine, his parents went through this. They could have saved hundreds of thousands for nursing home care if they would have done this gifting strategy and put the house in the kids' names and everything else. What a terrible thing that happened to this family. Hopefully it won't happen to ours. Another way to open up the subject of financial matters with your parents is to ask them for advice. Just ask them, you've done so well planning for your retirement. How did you get there? What could I do differently? And the whole idea is to get them to open up about financial and estate planning that they've done. And it may sound somewhat manipulative, and I guess it is, but it's an important goal. You could tell them about a neighbor of yours who was a victim of identity theft, and that you'd like to go over their security for all their accounts and whatnot. You want to show them, let's go and get your credit report to make sure there's no loans there that are not yours. I know you don't know how to use a computer, but I could do it for you. Just give me your social security number and I'll be able to print it out for you, and we can go over it together. That's how you get the foot in the door with finances with your parents. You could tell them about your own financial planning experience. Oh, last week I saw my financial planner. We went over my will, and I found something in the will that he saw that I have to go see my attorney and change. Because wills, if they were written a long time ago, things change in your life, and things had changed in mine. And he found it, and he said, "Yeah, you got to update this beneficiary situation. Your first grandson was born, or somebody died that's one of your beneficiaries, or something changed in your life. You inherited an asset. You have more money." And these are all from the book, as I said earlier. Who's it from? Cameron Huddleston. He's the author of the book, Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk, How to Have Essential Conversations with Your Parents About Finances. Maybe I'll have him on sometime. He's the kind of guy I think would be perfect for this show. You could use a life event to open them up to talking about finances. You could say something like, I saw how hard Grandma's death was on you and the end of her life. And it got me thinking, what sort of planning have you done? And can we do things differently with you so we won't experience the same angst that you did? Also, let's talk about your wishes. Because if something happens, we don't want to have to make decisions for you that you may not agree with. You could suggest, Ma, let's look at your life insurance policy and everything. Make sure your beneficiaries are up to date and your IRA accounts. You could nudge them to talk about, one thing that opens up people is talking about nursing homes. Discuss long-term care, and would they ever want to go into a nursing home, and what can we do to prevent that from happening? Well, maybe you can get in-home care, but, can you afford it? That opens up the door to looking at their finances. Or you could use, current events to open it up. Say there's changes to tax law. A huge swing in the stock market, changes in healthcare. The list goes on and on and on. You could use that as a launching point for a conversation about your parents' finances. So these are things that we all need to do. And parents, you could be the ones to initiate it. Now, more often than not, it's the children that initiate it. But I have clients whose the parents wanted to initiate it. The kids didn't want to know nothing about their finances or anything. Look, that's your business. Whatever it is at the end, it is. That's irresponsible on the children's part too, because sooner or later your parents are going to become incompetent, either mentally or health-wise in general. So you got to plan. What happens, Ma, if something happens to you and you can't pay your bills? We need to have somebody in the family with a power of attorney that be able to take care of your finances if you can. What about a healthcare proxy? We need somebody in your living will to make healthcare decisions for you. And we'd like to have a conversation with that person to see what your wishes are. It's all about planning. Another thing you can do is offer to lighten their load. Say, you know, Mom, I do this online banking all the time. It's easy. You don't have to mail it and go get stamps all the time and remember to pay the bill on time. Why don't you allow me to have access to your bank account and I'll pay your bills for you? Now you don't have to worry about that part of your financial life. I'll make sure everything's paid on time. I'll check your credit score periodically. Or you could say, Mom, let me set you up on automatic bill payment. That way you don't have to ever remember. Another thing you could do is tackle one of the most dreaded financial tasks for them. Tax preparation. It's amazing, tax season just ended. It's amazing. As an accountant, I talk to people all the time. Getting ready for taxes to come into your account that is just like a dreadful task. They don't want to do it. They hate it. Especially the ones that come in late. They're usually not totally prepared at that point either. So offer to do it for them. Now, I'll get your taxes done for you. Here's an envelope. Anything that says, tax document, put it in this envelope. I'll take it to the accountant, make sure your taxes are done timely, and it's filed properly. So, regardless of the way you want to open up this conversation, always be respectful when talking to your parents. Because you're not going to get very far if you're trying to demand things of them. Hopefully, most of us have compassion and reverence for our parents. We don't want to put them down. You're going to have more success if you talk with them than talking down to them and say, Ma, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do that. They don't got to do anything. But you got to sometimes ease them there. And another thing here, especially when you're having these family meetings, you got to keep your emotions in check, or the conversation will just degrade and end. So you want to be calm and level-headed. Now, should every child be involved in this conversation? Well, it depends. There's certain families that I don't want to have one person in that room. There will be no help to the situation. They've never been a help in the past. They've been detrimental to the parents' finances. They're selfish and greedy. And they're going to be no help. And I'll tell them, I don't want this person there. Another thing, if you're spread out around the country and you don't get together, there's 6 of us, we live all over the country, we don't get together. You do a conference call. Nowadays, with technology, we have Zoom, we have everything else. I very, very often, on the speakerphone in my conference room, will have 2 or 3 brothers in a room, another 2 on the conference call. So don't think we can't have this conversation because we can't get everybody together. We can. And other things you could do is just assign somebody, some family, every family dynamic is different. It's different. Some families, the one child is just, don't want to have anything to do with money, doesn't know anything about money, but the sister is very, very responsible. She's the one with mom all the time. Let her do the discussion. And then just report to you what the conversation was about and what we decided. Or let them have the conversation and come back to you and discuss with you what your opinion is. It doesn't have to be a family meeting all at once. But having this conversation, it's extremely important. As more and more baby boomers age and become towards the end of the days, it's so important to have these conversations so when they do pass or they need long-term care or whatever else, it's all been planned out properly. And there's no surprises and there's no stress at that point. There'll be stress, but you'll alleviate a good portion of it. So make sure you do it. If your parents, bring your kids in voluntarily. If your kids and your parents are at the stage. Now, again, this is most important when there's only one left at an advanced age and declining health, of course. But this conversation can be had at any time. And also, lastly, if there's something in the will that's going to offend one of your children, make them feel less loved, make them feel animosity to one of their siblings because of inequality, it has to be discussed. And I have clients all the time that says, I want to give more to my other son because he's here with me and he runs around with me and takes care of my stuff, and the other one's in California, I never hear from him. Well, if you're going to give 70% to the one that lives in New Jersey, you better let the other one know that you are and why. And that's a very uncomfortable conversation to have. But you better have it, because if they find out after you die, those two brothers will never talk again. Or will have animosity to each other in some way or the other. And there'll be bad feelings towards you. So I told clients, look, you got to have this conversation. The will is no place to keep secrets. And they're going to have it. They're nervous as hell about having it because they don't know how the one's going to react. But that's their wishes. That's their will. That's what a will is called, a will. Have these conversations with your children, with your parents, and schedule it. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't put it off. If you're at the stage of life where you think this is important time as a child, call your parent and open up the conversation. If you're a parent, call your children and say, let's talk. All right, let's take a break. 732-505-1160 is the call number. If you're on the line, stay on the line. We have some callers there. You want to get on the line, 732-505-1160 is the call number. My name's Lou Scatigna. Don't go away.